Yeah. What gave you the idea of organizing this series? Because I've seen the list of poets that you gather. They're really quite international and from everywhere.
Like honestly, it's just been I wanted to uh I felt like interacting with I had some over the last couple of years I've had some health issues, and um I just kind of felt like interacting with work that I connected with. Uh and yeah, it kind of took off from there. And yeah, it's just kind of been hit or miss. People I found online or people I've known for a long time. I sent out invites, and uh, I wasn't expecting so many people to say yes. Uh, so it kind of became like a suddenly like bigger thing than I thought it was going to be. And which I was extremely like grateful for. But yeah, I kind of feel like the world lacks uh verbiage right now. It's kind of hard to uh with the way everything's going. It kind of doesn't have a narrative or a through line. And I thought if I'm going to be doing anything as far as my small part goes, it should be to things that give me a narrative or things I read that make sense of the world. Might as well interact in person as much as I can with those things and invite other people to come along. Um,
Mm.
so yeah, that was kind of the genesis of this sort of was to make the world make sense again. Um, yeah, so
Oh, that's a really beautiful response. Sometimes I struggle with going out as well. Everything is so expensive, and sometimes I just don't have the energy. It's really nice to have some online readings that are still happening now that the world pretends that COVID is not happening anymore.
oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure. Like I have I my youngest child is immunocompromised.
Mhm.
Um and uh with when COVID started, um just the absolute like disregard, especially in America, I think, for thinking that it was true was very surprising to me. Like even people I was close to, not you know just just refusing to wear a mask or just any of those things was kind of surprising to me. And then yeah, absolutely, especially for my family, like uh pretending COVID is not real is kind of damaging to my family. Like I still wear a mask at work. I still um we still do a lot of those things that were kind of COVID lockdown type procedures. Although I hate the word COVID lock. I hate the phrasing COVID lockdown.
Mhm.
But yeah, yeah, it's kind of insane what people choose to believe and not believe. And then um yeah, yeah. So
Yeah, it must be a struggle, right? Doing things that the majority of people around you are not doing.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, even locally here, like poetry readings at like very small bookshops and stuff like that. And these are people that are giving words to the world, and uh they seem to be plugged in, but yet won't even wear a mask or won't acknowledge what's happening in Gaza. Like it's just kind of
Mhm.
insane to me. These are the people we're giving the right to do art to, or we're paying for their books and this and that, and yet the smallest things seem to be hard for them to do sometimes. So yeah,
Mm.
yeah, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, I struggle with that too. Like, how to take care of everything while trying to feel like I'm moving on, I'm doing things. It's really hard, but sometimes I think I try to think of like how not everyone is perfect, and sometimes we could do 100%, sometimes we can't.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know, but yeah, sometimes it's really obvious how people are not doing what they should as well.
Yeah. Well, I think too, like, yeah, kind of like you said, like any small thing, any small move towards understanding or whatever is a good move. Even if someone, I wouldn't ask anybody to understand what it's like to have
Hmm.
a child with a lifetime condition that's like I wouldn't ask anybody to understand what that's like. What I would ask is that when I say it, if if you think I have something to say when I say that thing, um, take it into account. Uh, and stuff. So yeah, I think that I think everyone's trying in this and that, but yeah, sometimes it's a little odd to see like if you can't even do the basic like listening to somebody or like being like, oh hey, you have an experience I don't. Maybe I will uh forego my platform for a second to allow you to say your piece. But it's hard because it's kind of a and I know that everybody everybody deals with the world being at a standstill. We're definitely in new times, but they're not new to people that experienced other things in the 80s, 90s, and this and that.
Hmm.
But I think under just trying to understand that any kind of movement in that standstill feeling is a positive, especially when it comes to the arts and this and that. So
I think that explains the name of this reading series a lot. I don't think I can't speak for everyone. Like I don't know. You is your series. I forgot the name, but when I saw the name, I knew this is somewhere I want to speak in, and I want to get to know this person.
yeah. I mean, I think it's a very common phrase to say like, I think I can speak for everyone here, and then someone goes on to mansplain or whatever. And I think the gist of it is that you can't, you should probably think you can't speak for everyone here. That should be your starting point, and from there maybe there can be some movement or this or that. I mean, there's always going to be impasses and things that are um, not resolvable. Uh, but I think especially in poetry, at the very least, there's the inclination to share an experience or to say something universal, but say something universal with something very specific or a very specific experience. So that was kind of the genesis of this thing. I was in the throes of not even being in this space anymore, very focused on my own pain, my own whatever. And when I came out of it, I was like, there's, I read so much. Like, I mean, I came across your work on Twitter, from someone had shared something, and I like that, I like that, like, oh, hey, I'm gonna go look this up. I'm gonna go search it, and then, uh, I read a poem of yours on diode and everything. So I mean, that to me is the fun thing about I mean, social media has so many negative things about it, but you do see if you curate your algorithm and follow the right things, you will find work or opinions and et cetera, that you never would have come across before. And so yeah, I think I mean, using Zoom to do an in-person reading from people all across the whatever is kind of using the tools of the oppressor uh, to uh, to not be oppressed or something. so so yeah, I
Yeah,
probably I
it's
probably went way
it's
off
good
way
to
off.
connect with each other. I don't know, like thanks for that. And that really eased me into the whole thing because I quite like how intimate the setting is. And speaking of Twitter, Jillian has done so much on Twitter, helping people promote their stuff. So yeah, it's really nice to see someone that I know. I don't know if I met Shinafi or Noah before, but hopefully everyone here is up for the open mic, and then I could hear everyone read, which would be
I
amazing because
am.
I I feel like you
I
don't
have
really get to
poems.
beautiful, beautiful. I feel like you really get to know a person from the poems they write. So I'm really looking
Hmm,
forward to it. Um, do
thank you.
yeah, should I start? I don't know.
I'll go ahead and introduce and start now. So hey, welcome to everybody. This is the 18th installment of the I Don't Think I Can Speak. I think I can't speak for everyone here reading series. It's a reading series for writers, people who have written, are writing, or who I think should be writing. Though poetry is my way of kind of returning the ghost bee to the hive. This is a writer's space, so vignettes, silences, excerpts from novels, stories, poems, whatever, anything from the part of you that writes down the world. This is your space. Whether reading or not, you can turn your camera on or off, keep it consistent with your comfort level. I would ask everyone, of course, keep the audio off while people are reading. If you see something I should be seeing, you can either unmute or throw it in the chat and I'll see it. You can direct message me on the chat to sign up for the open mic if you haven't already. Just write your name and pronunciation notes and I'll get to you after the featured reader is done. Afterward, if you have any questions, requests, comments, you can direct them to bluejawedsnake@gmail.com. I threw that in the chat as well. Readings will be on the YouTube channel within the day of the reading. With that, I'm going to go ahead and introduce Tim Tim Cheng, our featured reader. They are the author of Tapping at Glass from VERVE 2023. It's a Poetry Society Book of the Year. It explores womanhood, multilingualism, and psychogeography. Her collection, The Tattoo Collector, is forthcoming from Nine Arches Press in 2024. It navigates the relationship between the body, ecology, and class. She currently lives between Glasgow and London, also translates between English and Chinese, and you can find their work at timtimcheng.com. I came to their work online via Twitter, as I said, through some mutual friends, then sought them out online, mostly at work, where I seem to always be. And in that sleep state of work, their work kept me awake in the offertory of dream. What I like about their work is that the verse seems to know quiet to be the fossil brush of silence, and its saying seems a searchlight looking for a place to read about darkness. And I'm excited for you to hear them read, and I'll go ahead and give them the spotlight.
Thank you. I'm going to read from both of my books. Hopefully that will entice you to get both of them. I'm from Hong Kong, and what really made me start writing was 5 years ago, when 1/3 of our population, which was 2 million people, took to the streets to demand for a change in government policy. That worked out, but it also led to a lot of mass trials and prosecutions and big censorships. And I started to write in order to look for some meanings. That isn't necessarily successful, but I ended up with something that I would like to share and remember. The first poem that I'm going to read is called Questions for the Police at Royal Infirmary. It's basically me getting stuck in a hospital in Edinburgh, and I started having unwelcoming flashbacks. Questions for the Police at Royal Infirmary. Am I making too much eye contact? Do you always work nights? What will I have for breakfast? Did you know the coffee machine does not work? Should I look at those old ladies' bruised faces? Are you sick of your job? Why am I looking at you without disgust? Is this because this country is so new to me? Do you think soap operas use the right props for your badges? Did you call the police as a kid? Was it a prank or a threat? What makes you talk? The lack of windows or the color gray? If you were in the interrogation room, could you tell my great granny lied? Are you kind when no one watches? The whole book is called The Tattoo Collector. Tattoo as in designs on your skin, as in military performances, as in music. Um, but I do digress quite a lot. As a person with ADHD and as a person from Chinese tradition. The next poem is one of the four poems that are called The Tattoo Collector. It's quite self-indulgent, really. It just kind of describes the tattoos I have, which is nice. That's why I love poems. Some of them could be really shameless selfies. It's a sonnet. The Tattoo Collector. Incisions, incisions, incisions. Gloved fingers stretch my skin for the ink to set. I'm convinced if I turn my blank slate into a puzzle and exhibit, you'll be looking and not looking into me. A site for stenciling future's blueprints. I've practiced letting strangers apply pressure on me. Elbow my shoulders as they resist the coming of black outlines, which safeguard every lost charm. A swallow faces a mountain it can never reach. Needs to needles, blessed are the pains that numb other pains. I kneel on a butterfly with time's spiral as wings. Close by, a naked night rider gallops the pitch dark. Her eyes glow, hair flies. Oh, by the way, I sent the document of the poems that I'm reading in the chat. If you need something to refer to, please do. The next poem is called Surgeons' Hall Museum. It's in Edinburgh. The museum contains jars of human remains for medical purposes, and you get to see medical tools throughout the century in that museum. I remember walking into the museum and became vegetarian for a week. It was terrifying but fascinating at the same time. So I wrote this poem to reflect on my feelings. And I kind of adopted a sort of syntax that Buddhist chants always use. Um, it's called the Surgeon's Hall Museum. You are an animal seeking structures, a structure seeking animals. Animals, your shattered facts, your animals. Death allows a love too violent for the living, a violent love of death. Violence lets live in the afterlife lets in. Your feet are weak from the silence of souls, the silence of what you saw. A foot snapped, bound, huge-shaped, fissured into rot. You desired some biography, some reads bandaged, age 6. You're like those who desire to jiggly gait, name that, know his feet. You name a woman by her suffering, a woman names you her suffering, which you inherit without knowing, without her knowing. Um, I guess I write a lot about inheritance because they feel inescapable, and sometimes they add to your life. Sometimes they take things from your life. And the next poem is from my last book. It's called Notes to Impossibility. I wrote that reflecting on what it meant to have experienced mass protest and public memorials for deceased protesters, and turned out collective grief could be a key to unlock something that is buried in your personal memories. Yeah, this poem is called Notes to Impossibility. Where I come from, everyone is free to exercise their freedom loudly. Once, I want to do it well. It really suck if bad arts got us into trouble, stuck with the banned thing that we hated. My friend and I laugh about this, and for a moment, the walls aren't listening. We live well, at least we try. I do my dishes by hand to get a little closer to the river. I stare at my first pot of lilies and bloom into the child I wasn't. I reply to my family more, begging with trees to rake the wind still, the way my great granny kept dying until she didn't. What shocked me more was how a call from the hospital could excuse me from work right away. How freeing grief is. I never sweep my family's tombs, but pace through public memorials to cry with crowds I've never met. It takes a whole world to burn me into someone I might believe in, knowing utter hope and despair comes from the same pride that can't free itself from itself. The only correct analogy between a city and your family is when there is no return, but you still dream of home. And then I wrote this book to contradict myself, because I thought there are ways of returning. Some ways might be very involuntary. um, and I guess I've picked some poems that kind of spoke to what I just told you. The next poem is called The Birth of a New Hero. If you click the document, you will see the artwork that inspired it. Um, it's after a statue by a Taiwanese artist. And I rewrote this poem a million times until I arrived at this version. And I thought, yeah, maybe this is why we do what we do. We keep witnessing and we keep trying to take actions. Anyway, the birth of a new hero. When they cut you down, I bend my knees, curl up into a camphor tree stump. A second skin envelopes me, softening edges. I cover my face with both hands, the honesty breathes. I crack, ripple where my joints jut. Forget costless nicety, forget proud annihilation, forget how life goes on. Here's to searchlights storming through households, replacing dawns. Here's to shadows now statues, to unblinking mornings, the acute quiet in our bread, our bite-sized offering. I've completely skipped the second portion of this book. um, I guess they're a bit too personal, of a family and about the history of sailing in Hong Kong, and they're quite long. But the third part of the book I thought is quite nice. It's like, oh, after all that meandering, like protest and witness and delving into history, what do we do now? And I kind of just separated the book into three sections for that purpose. And the first poem of the third section is a reply to a question that I was asked quite often when I read in English to a Hong Kong audience. Some background information. English was Hong Kong's only official language until 30 or 40 years ago, because Hong Kong was a British colony. Um, that was a strange thing because the majority of the population actually speak Cantonese. And Chinese became, although we use Cantonese on a daily basis, Chinese only became official like 30 or 40 years ago when Britain was handing over, like starting to hand over Hong Kong to China. And I remember reading in the UK to a Hong Kong audience who spoke English and Cantonese and Mandarin. And they asked me if I felt guilty for writing or performing in English. And I thought that was such a loaded question. So I wrote a about reply to that. So this is a poem called Re. Do you feel guilty for not writing in your mother tongue? We are in a field. The grass is unruly. I stand holding a mirror. My torso is out of view. To you, the field is tunneling through me. The views behind and before me merge. I surf the mirror that frames the field, that frames the mirror. Between the field and the mirror, the grass is already something else. All that glamour and glimmer. For the grass to reach the mirror, you cannot be proximate. It's generous, both of us, almost missing. We seem not to go or stay. Um, I guess, I guess especially after COVID, um, that sense of not knowing where you are and the world seems to go on despite you. It's a really common feeling. Um, and I have the privilege to be living in Scotland after COVID was at its peak, and I went to a lot of islands when I did not want to do my essays or when I suddenly felt trapped. And in one of the islands, Orkney Island, I kind of discovered something that I should have known or I should have remembered ages ago. So this poem is called Salvaging. It's a combination of a lot of voices, voices from tour guide, voices from nature, and voices from ancient monuments. Salvaging. In sun-showered Orkney, rainbows sprouted after I failed to withdraw cash. What a thing, to spend all my money to be in nature when I could not drive. According to a tour guide, a boy once saw a soldier jump from a ship. From afar, the boy thought, that seems fun. I want to join him. Oil spilt along ice shards, frozen water burned. Causes of death did not offset each other. As such, I replied to emails after encircling the ring of Brodgar, wind-chilled moss sandwiches. The circles were complete. Back on the tour bus, an upturned ladybug struggled. One had to turn shipwrecks upside down to dispatch them from town to town, rumored too to have been reused for satellites. From sea to space, the ageless still orbited on moonlit purposes. I sat with opposites, an empty seat, and looked out. Yeah, later on I discovered that like the idea of the coexistence of opposites um actually exists in Taoist thoughts as well. So I kind of just made a really long journey to discover the traditions that I came from, which is kind of ridiculous, but sometimes we do that. Um, the last poem that I'm going to read is called Bad Tattoo Poem. Um, I kind of channel the character of the Monkey King from one of the classics literature in China. Um, the Monkey King is kind of like the protagonist of the book Journey to the West. It's about a monk taking all the monsters to get holy scripture in the West. But of course, it's the book is written in China. The West that the book refers to is actually India. And I thought that's quite interesting, how throughout my own life, like I've always looked to the West as US, the UK, but now that I'm in the UK, suddenly I've changed the direction of where I want to look at. I guess I am now even more interested in Asia in my childhood, the countries that surround me when I grew up, more than the UK or the US, which is ridiculous. Yeah, this poem is called Bat Tattoo Poem. It's also about a hairdresser that I will never meet again. I used his service once and he just told me everything about his life. I thought that's quite interesting. And I'm kind of repeating what he did to me to you guys as well. So thanks for bearing with me. I promise this will be my last one. Bat Tattoo Poem. No one could tame me. Born from a rock, brought havoc to heaven, ate all the peaches. I shapeshifted, wrote clouds beyond the edge of the universe, Buddha's looming palm. No one could tame me, not those plump fingers of a mountain plunging from the sky, not those hundreds of years as I waited for release, fisted on dew and wind, weeds burgeoned from my holes. Oh, my hairless child, what have you done? Let through karaoke, Tsingtao beers wills, the night bus to Shenzhen. My image blasted on your back for the price of a cheap cell phone. Contour dimmed into bruises, fur, burned matches. A bad copy of mine is enough to scar. No one could tame me, black me out. I know. Yeah, thanks for listening. I can't wait to hear the open micers. It's really precious to have a space to share what I really feel deeply, what I worked so hard on the last few years. Thanks so much. If you want something for reference, you can find links to poems in the chat and where to find my books everywhere. So yeah, thanks.
Oh, thank you so much. That was absolutely lovely reading. Thank you for those shattered facts and for doing our hair, I guess. That was lovely and touching and yeah, absolutely. Check and anybody definitely check out their work. All the links are in there. I have yet to receive my copy of the Tattoo Collector, but I'm looking forward to it. It should be here in a couple days. So, with that, I'll go ahead and get started with the open mic. We had a Julian Day. Gonna go ahead and read. I'll go ahead and give them the spotlight, and thank you.
Thank you. I mean, I don't know how many. Most of my poems are fairly short. I'm happy to read a couple, or three, whatever, and sort of mix and match. So the first poem is called Man in a Bottle. Fauget, French for fern. Wet damn September, England, 1974. A record, cold snap. October coming, aromatic haze. Bright, deep green, sillage cloaks and swirls around your bunched up neck. Snazzy and stressed. Still debonair Paco Rabanne, a new scent scarf to face the daily round. A bottle is a foil to stinging flies, sludge and stones on the windscreen. Fog, rising hell, a tin of made up beans. Thank you. And the second poem is written after a poem by H.D. Called CRS, and my poem is called Badlands Dark Blue Bearded RS, which is a specific RS. Indigo denim clad, far from light, powder blue types, you came rushing over, storm broke, veined, throbbing in wind, sweat to my backyard, James Dean evening, white t-shirt, scoundrel of night. I imagined you smelling of all things ocean born, ruffling folks on land, outlandish, windswept, strange sand, grains in your gritty brain, ready to build new worlds, take away damp petals from the coastline of my belly. And I'll finish with final piece. I'll go for a poem that's called All Tomorrow's Parties, the ultra short inventory for the 80s in 3 footwear styles. Winkle pickers are meant to blind bad boys, shelf life longer than regular shell life. Pixie boots go with rah-rah skirts, long or short skirts, pair with a Harrington jacket for mod look. Doc Martens for the die-hard punks, to be worn only with drain pipes, nothing to do with the gutter. Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Thank you, Julian, for the pairings and for reading. That was absolutely lovely. And yeah, I'm blown away by the readings done here today. To close out, I did have a couple things myself to read for the open mic. I was going to read a one poem of my own, and then a couple poems of others, and then I'll let everyone get out of here. First poem is going to be a series I have poems called Communions. So this is Communions. Teach the baby to suck in its stomach. Go bite mark bald to the burning of tire swings. Pretend you can be nostalgic in America. Do this by having at all times handfuls of woozy spiders that prevent you from making guns of your hands. Do this by drinking. I wasn't worried, but then my phone started working in a dream. In heaven, every mirror is an exit wound. I'm just going to read a poem from Joyelle McSweeney from her collection Death Styles. This poem is dated 9/2/2020, daughter style. To order the black sneakers. To keep the late appointment. To convince the lady hygienist to see you. Even now when we're so late, large, glossy, and made of power, like Europa pulled away by cow to drown at sea, who comes back every morning as her avatar, dawn, she leads you off to the white interior, your grin is spreading. It's so American to hurt you like this, for the sake of your own white teeth, to send the old pair back, to order the next size up, to study your toes, how they line up, shell pink and auspicious as Romanovs in snow. When I'm your age, I sit in the schoolroom and contemplate Wheel of Fortune, the cardboard globe tilt its metal brace, If you pull it out of the brace, it has 2 holes in it and is easily dented, which is what the brace is for. But you have to dislodge it to learn this. So it's already too late. As we stare at the door, try to melt the afternoon with laser vision, tap at smashed screens with sore fingers. You're with me now. Will you take back what you said if I swathe you in denials thick as a sneaker tread? My own inutility gapes like a snake in the stars, flashes fangs, writhes pointlessly, and swallows nothing. I don't bother to look up anymore, but grope under your pillow for devices. Under the date stamp, a tsunami battens, then retracts from the amusement park, thinking better and leaving a huge eye of wheel in the mud. In my mind's black eye, an old nerve winks like a lost fortune. An old possibility goes gill green. Sneakers wash up along the shoreline. In your sleep, you repeat the motion of advancing, retracting, of flinging wide your nets to net the moon. But like every tide, you fail. Some mad duct is governing this. Some mad deranged government tries to fit you into its business, so you draw red nets on your wrists. Like a pulsing star, you signal. Like a star, you fail to hide behind your signal. And then lastly, I'll read a poem from Daniel Borzutsky's The Murmuring Grief of the Americas. And this poem's actually one of a series called The Murmuring Grief of the Americas. We ask the murmurers what they want to do with themselves now that they don't get to live anymore. They say they want to love all the things they could not love when they were alive. They ask us to carve their names into the hills, and they give us more love than we have ever known. They hold us and say, you do not have to survive. You do not have to keep moaning. You do not have to keep living. What they mean is, in death, we will finally learn about the promise and dignity of life. We do not recognize the meaning of these words, and we cannot understand why we hear them at this particular time. The only thing we want to know is, how can we not become the history of the dead road, the history of the dead water, the history of the dead dirt, the history of our children whose bodies will never grow? All right. And with that, thank you everybody for being here today. The reading should be up on the YouTube channel in a couple hours. I'll go ahead and put that out there. Again, lovely to hear everybody. Thank you everybody for saying yes and for taking part. And enjoy your weekend. Love y'all.